The only moments you truly live, the only moments that become yours forever are the moments that you are awake for, the moments you remember yourself. Everything else, everything you sleepwalk through, simply passes through you and vanishes as if you had been there never, because in a sense, you never were. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott, and I'm super excited today to discuss Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, the magician and the sheep, a super fascinating deep dive on a unique ancient teaching that shows that we are all asleep in a trance, and so much more. A long time ago, in a land of dust and silence, there lived a magician who was very rich and very cruel. He owned a great flock of sheep, thousands of them, scattered across the hills, and every one of those sheep was worth money to him because the magician wanted their flesh and their skins. There was a problem. The sheep kept running away. They wandered toward the forest, they slipped into the ravines, and worst of all, when the moment came for the magician to take what he wanted from them, they fled. Because somewhere deep inside, the sheep sensed the truth. They sensed that this man saw them as meat. A wise master would have built a fence. He would have hired shepherds. But the magician was greedy, and fence costs money, and shepherds want to be paid. So the magician found a different solution, a darker one. He hypnotized them. He looked into their eyes, and he whispered three things. First, he told them they were immortal. He told them that being skinned would bring them no harm at all, that it would feel pleasant, that it would even be good for them. Second, he told them he was a kind and loving master, a master who adored his flock so deeply that he would give them anything in the world. And third, he told them that even if something were coming for them, it would arrive on some other day, far away, never today, so there was no reason to think about it, no reason to worry, no reason to run. And then he did the cruelest thing of all. He told them they were no longer sheep. To some, he whispered, "You are a lion." To others, "You are an eagle." To a few, "You are a man." And to the proudest among them, he leaned close and said, "You are a magician, just like me." After that, the running stopped. The sheep grazed quietly on the hills, calm, content, certain of their own greatness, and they waited peacefully for the day the magician would come to collect their skins. This story is very old. A teacher named George Gurdjieff carried it out of the mountains of Central Asia and into the drawing rooms of wartime Russia, where a brilliant and skeptical mathematician wrote it down. And when the mathematician finished writing it, Gurdjieff looked at him and said the words that have haunted seekers for hundreds of years. "This tale describes your life. You are the sheep." This is one of the most dangerous ideas ever smuggled out of the hidden schools of the East, the idea that the entire human race is asleep, hypnotized, dreaming with its eyes open, and that only a few people across the centuries found the secret map for waking up. Tonight we follow that map. To understand the map, you have to understand the man who found it. His name was Pyotr Demyanovich Ouspensky. And he was the last person on earth you would expect to chase a mystical teaching. Ouspensky was a mathematician, a philosopher, a hard-edged Russian intellectual who trusted evidence and distrusted everything else. He had already written books on higher dimensions and the nature of time. He moved through the salons of St. Petersburg as a man of pure reason, and yet something gnawed at him. Ouspensky had become convinced of a single electrifying possibility. He believed that behind the surface of ordinary life, behind the newspapers and the dinner parties and the endless machinery of the everyday, there was something vast, something hidden, a deeper knowledge that a few human beings somewhere still possessed. He suspected that real schools existed, schools that were nothing like universities, schools that guarded ancient methods for transforming a human being into something far greater. And he suspected that these schools had deliberately hidden themselves from the modern world. So he did a thing a true seeker does. He went looking. Ouspensky traveled. He sailed to Egypt and stood before the pyramids, Searching for traces of forgotten knowledge in the stone, he journeyed to India, to Ceylon, through the east, following rumors and whispers, hunting for the masters who were said to hold the keys. He gave years of his life to the search. And then he came home with empty hands, or so he believed. Then came the war. It was 1915, the world was on fire, and in the gray cold of wartime Moscow, a friend mentioned a strange man, a teacher unlike any other, a man with dark, piercing eyes, and a presence that unsettled everyone who came near him. His name was George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. Where Gurdjieff came from, no one fully knew. He spoke of years spent traveling through Central Asia, through Tibet, through monasteries and brotherhoods, hidden in mountains that appeared on no map. He claimed to have gathered from these scattered sources a single unified teaching, a complete system for the awakening of human beings. He called it simply the work. Ouspensky went to meet him expecting a fraud. He found instead a man who answered questions he had carried in silence for 20 years, a man who spoke of consciousness, of energy, of the soul, with the precision of an engineer describing a machine. And in their very first conversation, Gurdjieff told Ouspensky something that turned his world inside out. He said that the great searching Ouspensky had done, all those journeys to Egypt and India, had run in the wrong direction. The hidden knowledge was real. The schools were real. But the one thing standing between Ouspensky and that knowledge was Ouspensky himself, because Ouspensky, brilliant as he was asleep. And so it turns out, are you. Begin with the most outrageous claim in the entire teaching, the claim that everything else rests upon. Man is a machine. Gurdjieff said it plainly: everything you do, everything you feel, everything you think you choose, everything that happens the way the rain falls and rivers flow, by mechanical law. A man walks, talks, works, loves, hates, marries, grieves, and walks through all of it. He is a mechanism responding to outside forces the way a clock responds to the weight that drives its gears. You believe you act. In truth, you are acted upon. You believe you think. In truth, thoughts think themselves inside you, arriving and leaving like weather, and you take the credit for the storm. Now hold on, because here's where the teaching turns precise instead of insulting. Gurdjieff said that a human being is built to live in 4 states of consciousness. 4, and almost every person who has ever lived has only used 2 of them. The first state is sleep, ordinary sleep, in your bed full of dreams. The second state is the one you are using this very moment, the state you call being awake. You can walk and talk and read and reason, and because you can do these things, you are certain you are conscious. You are mistaken. Gurdjieff called this second state waking sleep. A more honest name for it is the hypnotic state, because you move through your day in a kind of trance, carried from one thought to the next, one reaction to the next, one craving to the next, and almost never present to your own existence. Here's the test. Try to recall the drive home yesterday. The whole drive, every turn, every light, every passing face, what music you were listening to. You arrived safely. Your hands steered, your feet worked the pedals, your eyes read the road, and you remember almost none of it. A machine drove you home, and you were elsewhere, dreaming. The machine is you, asleep. The third state Gurdjieff called self-consciousness, the state of truly remembering that you exist in this body, in this place, at this moment. Most people are convinced they live in this state already. They're convinced wrongly. They visit it for a few seconds at a time by accident, and then the trance closes over them like water. And the fourth state, the fourth way, the rarest of all, he called objective consciousness, the state in which a human being perceives reality as it truly is, with the veil lifted away. The state the mystics of every tradition have pointed toward and struggled to describe. 2 states out of 4. That is the human condition. We are sleepwalkers who believe we are awake, using a fraction of consciousness we were built to hold. And the deepest question, why does humanity sleep? Gurdjieff offered the most chilling answer in the whole of his work. He said, the sleep is maintained, held in place by a force. Now think back to the magician and his sheep. The thing that kept the flock calm and grazing was hypnosis. And Gurdjieff said that something inside every human being plays exactly that role, a force that whispers comforting dreams, that lets you imagine you are a lion when you are a sheep, that replaces the real with the imaginary so smoothly that you feel satisfied and stop reaching for more. He gave that force a name you already know, a name modern spiritual world treats as sacred and longs to awaken. He called it the Kundalini. In the popular teachings, Kundalini is a holy fire coiled at the base of the spine, a serpent of divine power waiting to rise and flood you with enlightenment. Seekers spend lifetimes trying to raise it. Gurdjieff turned that on its head. He said that the real Kundalini is the power of imagination and fantasy, the force that makes a man dream in place of acting, the force that lets the centers of the body feast on the imaginary in place of the real. The sheep that grazes in peace, certain it is a lion, lives under the spell of the Kundalini. In his teachings, Kundalini was placed in human beings to keep them exactly where they are, asleep, docile, dreaming, and to awaken. He said it means one thing above all, it means to be dehypnotized. Now, Gurdjieff's description of the Kundalini appears to be some other thing. That was the word that he used for it. We'll return to this because it holds a key to everything that you have been taught about creating your reality. But let's go deeper into the machine. There is one word you use more than any other, one small word you speak hundreds of times a day while you go on questioning it, never. I want, I feel, I think, I decide, I believe, I love, I hate. Every time you say I, you assume it points to the same thing, one self, one you, a single solid person sitting at the center of your life, steady through the years. Gurdjieff said this is the greatest illusion of all, and Ouspensky, the mathematician, found it to be true. You are many. 100 separate selves, never a single one, a vast crowd of little I's. Each rising for a moment to seize the microphone, speak in your name and vanish. Every thought is an I. Every feeling is an I. Every desire, every craving, every flash of anger, every wave of tenderness, a separate I, climbing onto the throne, calling itself the whole of you, and then giving way to the next. The I that makes a solemn promise at midnight in one self. The I that breaks that promise by morning is another. And the cruelest part is that these two selves have met each other never. They live in the same body, speak with the same mouth, sign the same name, and they know nothing of each other. Picture a great house full of servants, and the master and the steward are away. The servants are forgetting there is a master at all. Each one in turn picks up the master's hat, sits in the master's chair, gives orders in the master's name, and pretends to be the master, and the house falls into chaos because no one is truly in charge. That house is you. The throne at the center of you, the place where a single permanent self should sit, the place where your real will should live, stands empty. This is why your resolutions collapse, why you know exactly what you want at one moment and betray it the next. This is why you can swear off a habit with total sincerity and find yourself repeating it within an hour. There is no continuous self to hold the aim, only a parade of passing selves, each with its own desire, its own agenda, its own will, pulling the machine in 100 directions. And the teaching cuts even deeper into a distinction that explains almost everything about who you are. Gurdjieff divided the human being into two parts: essence and personality. Essence is what you're born with. It's yours, truly yours, the seed of your real nature, the things you were before the world got to you. Personality is everything that was put into you from the outside: your opinions, your manners, your beliefs, the words you repeat, the tastes you wear like clothing. Personality is acquired, borrowed, built by imitation and education and the endless pressure of other people. And here is the tragedy of the modern human being. In most people, personality has grown enormous. and essence has stayed the size it was in early childhood. The borrowed self towers over the real self. The mask has swallowed the face. People live their entire lives as personality, as a costume, while the true seed of who they are sits small and starved in the dark. Gurdjieff did something almost no teacher would dare. He proved it. In his groups, he performed experiments using methods Ouspensky chose his words carefully around. Gurdjieff could put a person's personality to sleep for a while and let the essence show through, and the results stunned everyone who witnessed them. A man who moments before had spoken with confidence about art and religion and ideas would suddenly fall silent. The opinions were gone. The clever talk was gone, because none of it had ever been his. It was all personality, all borrowed, and with the personality quieted, there was almost nothing underneath. A grown adult, intellectually sophisticated, revealed to be in his real essence barely more than a child. This is the human situation laid bare, a crowd of passing selves with an empty throne, wearing a borrowed mask so heavy that the real self beneath has scarcely grown it at all. It sounds like a sentence with no appeal. And yet inside this diagnosis lives the most hopeful idea in the entire teaching, because once you can see the prison, you can plan the escape. When Gurdjieff's circle in Moscow spoke about the human condition, they kept returning to one image above all others: a prison. A man, they said, is in a prison. And the first question of his whole life is this: what should a man in prison desire? If he has any sense, he desires only one thing: to escape. But before he can even want to escape, something has to happen. He has to realize that he is in prison. A man who believes he is free will dig a tunnel never. He will decorate his cell. He will arrange the furniture, collect possessions, argue about politics with other prisoners, and live out his whole life behind the walls, convinced the whole time he chose to be there. And once a man truly sees that he is imprisoned, he learns 3 more things, each more humbling than the last. He learns that he is unable to escape alone. The walls are thick, the tunnel is long. One man, by himself, with his own 2 hands, will die digging. He learns that he needs others, a small band of fellow prisoners who have also awakened, who also want out, who will dig alongside him. And he learns the most surprising thing of all: he needs help from beyond the walls. He needs maps of the prison that no prisoner could draw from the inside. He needs files and tools that no prisoner could forge. And those maps and those tools can come from only one source: from people who have already escaped. This is the entire reason in the work that real schools exist. A school is a group of people who are digging, and a school can only begin when knowledge is smuggled in from those who got out before. The map is passed from hand to hand across generations, from the few who reached the other side back to the many still sleeping in their cells. Gurdjieff offered a second image for the same truth, and it may be the most beautiful in the whole teaching. He said that every human being is a great and magnificent house, a mansion of many floors and many rooms. Upstairs, there are libraries filled with wisdom. There are chambers of art and music. There are rooms of vision and power and divine connection, rooms after gleaming room, all of it yours, all of it is your birthright. And you live in the basement. You live in the basement, in the kitchen, in the 2 lowest rooms of your own enormous house, and you have lived there so long that you have forgotten the upper floors exist. And when someone comes and tells you about the libraries above, about the rooms of light at the top of your own staircase, you laugh. You call it superstition. You call it fantasy. You call it woo. You turn to your basement and your 2 small rooms and you call the whole thing your world. The tragedy is total. You're an heir living as a beggar inside your own inheritance. Now lift your eyes from the single human being to the whole of humanity, because Gurdjieff drew the same picture on a vast scale. He said all of humankind is divided into 2 great circles, an outer circle and an inner circle. The outer circle is where nearly everyone lives, the sleeping ones, the mechanical men and women, driven by outside forces, dreaming their lives away. You might call them NPCs, but I believe they're all true beings with souls. But billions of people generation after generation asleep. And then there is the inner circle, the conscious circle of humanity, the ones who woke up, the ones who climbed the staircase to the upper floors and learned to live there, the genuinely awakened beings who have appeared throughout history in every land, often unknown, often hidden, quietly holding the knowledge and passing it down. Between the two circles stands a threshold, and on that threshold stand the people who have begun to wake, the ones who have seen the bars, who have started to dig, who are climbing the stairs out of the basement toward the light. The whole purpose of the work is to carry a human being across that threshold, from the outer circle to the inner, from sleep to awakening, from the basement to the rooms of light. And the doorway, the single practice that opens the whole staircase, was the thing Ouspensky said all of Western thought had missed for 2,000 years. It was a single moment on a single street that changed everything for Ouspensky. He was walking through St. Petersburg and he decided to try something Gurdjieff had described, a practice that sounded almost too simple to matter. He decided to remember himself. He walked. He held a feeling rather than a thought, the feeling of, I am here. I am walking. I am present, aware of my own existence at this very moment on this very street. And immediately two things happened that astonished him. The first was that the moment he truly held the feeling of himself, his endless inner chatter went quiet. The thinking stopped. For as long as he could feel I am, the machine of his mind fell silent. The second was harder to hold. He could sustain it only for a few seconds. Again and again, the feeling slipped away. The trance closed back over him and he walked on for whole minutes, lost in thought, having forgotten himself completely before suddenly catching himself and beginning again. And out of this struggle, Ouspensky drew a diagram so simple it can be sketched with 2 arrows. In ordinary life, he said your attention runs in one direction, like an arrow flying outward from you toward whatever you are looking at. You see the street, the person, the screen, the problem, and your whole awareness pours out toward it. You vanish into the thing you observe. The observer disappears. Self-remembering is different. In self-remembering, the arrow points 2 ways at once. One head of the arrow flies outward toward the world, toward what you are doing, and the other head turns back toward yourself, toward the thing who is doing it. You are aware of the street and aware of yourself walking in it. You hold both ends of the line at the same time. That divided attention, that double-pointed arrow, is the whole secret. It is the doorway to the third state of consciousness. It is the act of waking up, performed on purpose for a few seconds at a time until the seconds grow. And then Ouspensky discovered the thing that turned a simple practice into a revelation about the nature of human life. He began to examine his own memory, and he noticed something staggering. The moments he could truly relive from his past, the moments still alive in him, vivid, present, real enough to step back into, were always the moments in which he had remembered himself, the moments he had been truly present and aware. And all the rest, the vast oceans of his life, the years of it, he could only say of those years that they had taken place. He knew they happened. He had the dates and the facts, but he was unable to enter them. They were flat, gray, gone. A life lived in sleep lives behind no living memory at all. Only a record that something occurred while no one was home. Understand what this means, because it is enormous. The only moments you truly live, the only moments that become yours forever, are the moments that you are awake for, the moments you remember yourself. Everything else, everything you sleepwalk through, simply passes through you and vanishes, as if you had been there never, because in a sense, you never were. A year of presence in a year of life, a year of sleep, is a year that disappears. And now feel how this lands inside everything you already know. When you have read about the observer in the strange world of the quantum, the idea that the act of conscious observation shapes what becomes real, you were touching the edge of this. Self-remembering is the observer turning to observe itself. It is a presence become a force. And those who have crossed the threshold of death and returned, who looked back and saw their own life and their own body from outside themselves, described the very thing Gurdjieff was teaching, the self, awake, aware, watching from a place beyond the machine. A near-death experience is a self-remembering at the highest voltage, the observer fully separated from the dream, seeing at last with objective eyes. This is why the practice matters more than any other. Self-remembering is how you stop being the sheep. It is how you climb out of the basement. It is the best and first tool smuggled in from the inner circle, the file that begins to cut the bars. And the further you follow it, the stranger the world becomes, because Gurdjieff reached far beyond the inner life of man. He drew a map of the entire cosmos. And on that map, our place in it is far more astonishing and far more unsettling than anyone had imagined. Gurdjieff taught that the universe is alive, every level of it, from the smallest cell to the largest star, all of it part of one vast living structure governed by laws most human beings have heard named never. He calls the great structure the ray of creation, a ladder of worlds descending from the absolute, the source of everything, down through the stars, down to our sun, down to the planets, down to the earth beneath your feet, and down to the one final rung below us, the moon. And here Gurdjieff said something that sounds like a dream and lands like a verdict. He said the moon is alive in its own way, and the moon is growing. It is a world being born slowly across ages of time, and like everything that grows, it must be fed. What feeds the moon is us. Organic life on Earth, all of it, the forests, the oceans of creatures, and the billions of human beings, forms a thin film of living energy wrapped around the planet, and then that film exists in part to serve the worlds above and the worlds below. Gurdjieff put it in words that have unsettled readers for a century. Everything that lives serves the earth, and everything that dies feeds the moon. The energy released by life, and above all by death, rises and falls through the ray of creation, and a portion of it streams down to the hungry, growing moon. Gurdjieff said the moon does something more to us than receive our energy. The moon moves us. He compared organic life on Earth to a great clock, and the moon to the heavy weight that hangs from the chain and drives the gears. Every movement you make, he said, is powered at the mechanical level by the pull of the moon. We are like puppets, and the moon holds the strings. The sleeping human being, the mechanical man, dances on lunar wires and calls it free will. And freedom, real freedom, means slowly cutting those wires. The more conscious you become, the more you remember yourself, the more you wake. The more the strings fall slack, the less the moon can move you. To awaken is to be lifted, thread by thread, out of the reach of the forces that pull the sleeping world. You see now why this teaching feels like something found in a sealed tomb. It describes a cosmos where humanity sits near the bottom of a living ladder, feeding a world below, moved by forces it has suspected never, and offered one narrow path upward toward the source. And at the very heart of the teaching sits a symbol, a figure Gurdjieff said contained the whole of knowledge if only you could read it, a circle. Inside it, 9 points, lines connecting them in a pattern that seems at first like a riddle. He called it the Enneagram. The Enneagram, he said, is the union of the two great laws of the universe, the law of three, the law of the forces that create, and the law of seven, the law of how everything in existence moves, develops, and transforms, brought together in one symbol. These laws form a map of how anything at all comes into being and unfolds through time. But Gurdjieff said something about this symbol that lifts it out of the realm of diagrams entirely. He said, the Enneagram is in motion. It is a living thing, a symbol you understand only by entering it, by experiencing it through movement, by becoming it. He said it is perpetual motion itself, the very perpetual motion that inventors chased for centuries and failed to build because they searched for it outside themselves while it turned all along within them. And then he laid down a challenge that has echoed through hundreds of years of seekers. Whatever a man fails to place inside the Enneagram, he fails to understand. a symbol that holds the structure of the cosmos, a symbol that lives and moves, a symbol that measures the depth of your own understanding by what you're able to pour into it. This is the kind of knowledge Ouspensky crossed the world to find, and he found it in a cold room in Russia, drawn on a page by a man with unfathomable eyes. But there's one more turn to this story. There's a moment in the work that stops every modern seeker in their tracks because it seems to contradict the most cherished ideas of our time. Gurdjieff said that man is unable to do. In ordinary life, he taught, nothing is ever truly done. Everything merely happens. The rain happens, the wind happens, and in the exact same way, your choices happen, your achievements happen, your whole life happens, rolling forward by mechanical law, while you stand inside it believing you are the author. A machine, he said, is unable to do, it can only react. You've been taught perhaps your whole life that you create your reality. I'm telling you this on a regular basis. That your thoughts shape your world. That you are the author of your experience. And now this ancient teaching seems to say the opposite. That you are a puppet on lunar strings, doing nothing, choosing nothing, dreaming. That you steer a ship that the current carries. Gurdjieff was describing the sleeping man, the mechanical man, the crowd of passing selves with the empty throne, and of course, that man creates nothing on purpose. How could he? He has 100 wills pulling in 100 directions, and a different self on the throne every few minutes. His intentions cancel each other out. He wishes for wealth on Monday and sabotages it on Tuesday. And the two selves never meet each other. A house full of squabbling servants builds nothing, it only makes noise. So the teaching is far from a denial of your power to create. It is the revelation of the missing first step. You become a deliberate creator at the exact moment you become one. One unified self, one permanent I seated at the last, upon the throne with a single aim held steady through time. That is what real will is, the capacity of a unified being to choose one thing and hold it until it becomes real. The sleeping crowd can wish, only the awakened self can will, and only the awakened self can truly create reality. This is the secret hidden underneath every teaching on manifestation that ever frustrated you. The reason your intention scattered was never that the principle was false. The reason was that there was no unified you to send the intention. You were trying to manifest from the basement through a crowd with an empty throne. Wake up, gather the selves, take the seat of the power, and the same principle that seemed to fail becomes a force. You have learned about imagination as the great creative power, the faculty that assumes the wish fulfilled, that lives in the end, that shapes reality from within. And then Gurdjieff seems to warn you against the very same faculty, naming imagination as Kundalini, the hypnotic force that keeps the sheep asleep. These two truths look like enemies. They are secret partners. Imagination running loose in a sleeping man is the lullaby of the magician. It is the idle daydreaming that drains away energy and replaces action. The fantasy of being a lion that keeps the sheep grazing peacefully toward the blade. That kind of imagination keeps you asleep, and Gurdjieff was right to sound the alarm. But imagination wielded by an awakened, unified self is something altogether different. It becomes directed, disciplined, conscious. It becomes the deliberate assumption of a chosen reality by a being present enough to hold it. The same fire that lulls the sheep to sleep becomes, in the hands of one who has become awakened, the power to create worlds. The difference is the one who imagines. Asleep, imagination is a drug. Awake, imagination is a wand. And the deepest thread is time. Gurdjieff and Ouspensky both circled an idea that I have already taught in previous episodes, that Neville Goddard has taught, that this life repeats, that the past and the future are far stranger and far more open than the clock on the wall suggests. They spoke of recurrence, the same life returning, like Groundhog's Day, until a soul finally awakens enough to change it. What you attain by waking up can never be lost. Every other gain dissolves at death. Awareness alone is carried across. This is the door to everything I teach about the pull of the future. A future self already awake, already whole, already living in the rooms of light at the top of the house, reaching back through time to pull the sleeping self up the stairs. The awakening you long for has already happened, and it is calling you forward into the only moment where waking is ever possible, this one. So where does this leave you? Inside your own enormous and half-forgotten house. It leaves you with a choice. The sheep on the hillside will have never. Because you've heard the thing the magician hoped you would sleep through. You've heard that you are asleep. And the moment a sheep truly hears that, the moment it sees the fence and remembers the forest, it stops only being a sheep. You stand now on the threshold between the two circles. Behind you, the outer circle, the long, warm dream. The basement with its two small rooms. Ahead of you, the staircase and the rooms of light. And the company of everyone who ever woke. And the first step up that staircase is the simplest act in the world and the hardest to remember to perform. Remember yourself. Remember who you are. The very moment, as these words reach you, feel the two-pointed arrow. Feel your attention flow outward toward the sound and the meaning. At the same time, turn the other point of the arrow back onto yourself. Feel that you are here, that you exist, that a living being is sitting in this place, breathing, present, awake, aware of its own awareness. Hold both ends of the line at once, outward and inward together. That feeling, that quiet doubting of awareness, is the third state of consciousness. That is the throne. And the longer you can hold it, the more the strings fall slack. The more the basement gives way to the light, the more the crowd of selves grows quiet. A single real you begins to take the seat of power. Begin with seconds, a few seconds, many times a day, standing in a doorway, waiting in line, hearing your own name, feeling your own feet on the ground. I am here. I am awake. I exist. And each time you forget, which will be often, you simply begin again with kindness. And the moment you remember, every one of these moments is a moment you will keep forever. A moment where you truly lived, a moment of the only real wealth there is, the moment of real presence gathering inside you, building. The magician is still whispering. He whispers through every screen, every worry, every comfortable hour that slips by, unremembered. Today we change that. Today we ignore the whisperings of the hypnotist and we wake up. The rooms of light are yours. Say it with me. I am here, I am awake, and I am ready to climb. Before we go, I want to invite you to join the Reality Revolution community at www.school.com/Reality Revolution. The link is in the description. We have an amazing group of people with weekly group coaching sessions and unique exclusive teachings that you can only find in our community with an amazing group of people. I look forward to meeting you there. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. I'd love it if you checked out my art. You can find it at www.newearth.art. Sending all my light and love to everyone here. Welcome to The Reality Revolution. There's a version of your life where everything you've been reaching for arrives, where the money flows, where love opens, where your body heals, where every step carries the frequency of the self you were always meant to be. That life exists. And the path to it has been 8 years in the making. This July, the Reality Revolution comes home to Anaheim. 3 full days of teaching, meditation, and timeline activation. 9 complete sessions designed to move you from the life you're living to the life that is waiting. Activate your pineal gland. Meet your higher self. Quantum jump into your greatest timeline. Enter the bliss body healing state. Step into the flow of large sums of money. Open fully to love. Shift into a higher density new earth. Friday night, the community celebrates together. Saturday evening, a special appearance from Daryl Anka. And by Sunday evening, you walk out as the version of yourself your future self has been waiting for.
I knew I had to be in the room because it's different from like listening to the meditation videos online.
It was really getting into yourself and how you feel and your timelines.
It's time at the event, and it really is. It's wonderful. So, like, I would highly recommend to anyone, if you get the opportunity to do it, absolutely do it. It really is amazing.
The Reality Revolution live in Anaheim, July 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Hilton Anaheim. 3 days that will change the trajectory of your life. Early bird pricing is available now. Claim your seat at www.brianscottlive.com/Anaheim.